What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I'd like to talk a little bit about the concept of NPCs and how that is kind of correlated and connected with oneness. I know for a lot of times, in the spiritual community, sometimes just in the truth community, you get this concept of NPCs. For those that aren't like familiar with that term, in the gaming world, that's just like those background filler people that just run on scripts, and they're not really integral to the plot of the game, or even in the movie, like extras. And the concept of NPC, or organic portals, is kind of like defined roughly in the same kind of way. Biblically, I think that that kind of falls under the spell of like the Antichrist spirit. And using that as a guide, and like the life of Jesus, for example, to kind of unpack how that was going on back then, is like a good example of like this kind of antichrist spirit, this NPC. I've also heard it like with COVID, with the term, what is his name, Desmond something. It was a mass formation. That's another way to like describe the same kind of thing. I like to look at commonalities, kind of disregarding the words, but like what are people trying to get at? What's the understanding here? And it's like using that idea, you can look biblically on how to be in relationship with that. And like the example I was getting to with like Jesus was about to be crucified, and in that process they could have let him go, or they'd be like found guilty. He was like one of two people was going to get let go. It was either going to be Jesus or this fucking murderer, that was just like an obvious like criminal at the time. Yeah, and the people chose Jesus, and let the fucking guy go. And it's like a good example of like how that mass formation psychosis can start to happen, because it's like, who wants a fucking criminal murderer just in their midst? Nobody really wants that. So it's like, how does that happen? And how does that perpetuate into like the present day, the realm that we find ourselves in, where this kind of continues to play out in these weird kind of events and circumstances coming through culture. Not to say that it's a bad thing to sit there in judgment of it, but with the law, a lot of it boils down to us and our choices, where we're putting our attention. And so if our attention and energy is being placed on the upside down clown world, and feeling like that's real, forgetting that it's all an illusion, to really showcase the relative world, and everything kind of exists in the spectrum, where it's like, if you put your attention on something, if you are curious about something, you can start going down any rabbit hole you can imagine, and these breadcrumbs will just start emerging, and you'll get deeper and deeper levels of awareness, to the point where you're almost in a matrix world yourself, because you're becoming so disconnected in your awareness from what other people in your surroundings are also experiencing, that are maybe more glued into like, oh, what's the mainstream narrative say. That's a whole nother aspect of this illusionary world. And when it comes to like looking at Jesus as the example on kind of like how to process and treat people, even when he was being murdered violently and a fucking brutally, getting hung, like stabbed up to a fucking post, crucifix, or whatever you want to call it. Just imagine getting like your fucking body attached to a telephone pole today. If you were to see somebody getting murdered like that, how fucking barbaric that would be. And getting stabbed, with like a sword at the same time, and just being beat to shit. And really visualize that. Put yourself in that awareness, and going through all of that kind of ordeal, to still then forgive the people that just did that to him. Besides murdering him, then parading him through town like fucking like an embarrassment, all this kind of stuff. And and in that forgiveness, he said, they know not what they're doing. They're unconscious, they're unaware of what they're even doing. And so to go forward in like the simulation, has to be getting out of this us versus them mode, because then that just perpetuates that that energy and actually starts to growing it, and so you start to dissolve those illusions of separation by loving your enemies, so to speak, just loving the people that are unconsciously just like draining, that are being like ignorant and aggressive, and just you could tell them water's wet and they just want to argue with you about it, and it's just like, really, this is what we're doing with our eternal moment of now, is just arguing over fucking nonsense. Just wanting to be right about something. It's just like, can we just let that shit just, who cares? Everything exists. It's like, I could find you equal amounts of information on any fucking topic, anything that you can imagine. You then start to create, with your awareness and your attention, has a counterbalance to it in this form. It just kind of is a part of like this unique, everything being unique and being in some sort of duality. There's contrary takes on everything, both of which have validity on some level, because that is an experience that the other person in their fucking illusion is proven right. That's like, everybody's right, but yet everybody's just in this spell, in this game. And like, the concept of NPC, I guess, like, to me, is biblically, the carnal mind is equated with a state of death. Like, and so I feel like part of like this process is going from death to life, where like the world goes from life to death. And it's another example of this kind of like upside down invertedness that can happen in the relative world. Not to be swayed by it. I mean, ask for discernment. It's within you is where you start to get discernment. But like, the thing of it is like, the more that you start to understand through just your own experience with God, what is actually real, what is actually unreal, when you start to realize the whole thing's fucking like a dream. So it's like, if you have characters in a dream, they're all still part of the one consciousness that's dreaming. And the waking dream world, the simulation we find ourselves in, is the same type of thing, where there's, on either end of this kind of thing, only love is actually going on. And in that is, in the, I know what I am because I know what I'm not, on some level, not to focus on what you're not, but we were that. That's part of going from death and walking in the shadow of death to life. So it's like, looking at your entire fucking life so far like a mirror, like a game, where you can start to go, oh, okay, well, a lot of this is reflecting my own beliefs on things, and as like, I'm changing my like consciousness by facing fear, growing faith in the fact that God is real, for one, and God is within, like, that connection, and with doubt, it's all things, but the connection is through consciousness. And it's like, the more that you know that through experience, because through either suffering on some level, like the world and the upside down, it just kind of just wakes you up to like, what the fuck is going on? This is clown world shit. This is so dysfunctional and just chaotic, and it just doesn't feel like a good reflection of like my state of consciousness. It doesn't feel reflective of like, what I hold to be like true about reality. And so part of that is it forces you to go within yourself and actually kind of unpack a lot of this inner turmoil, like your inner torment and your inner states of fear and guilt and shame, and all this programming from the Matrix world. Because it's like, going from death to life, it's like, you're just programmed. It's like, being in that state of like being an automaton is like, oh, it's always this external expert fucking telling you how to live and how to be and what to think and what to do, and to defy your God-given common sense, and all these different things. And it can be in the form of like an NPC, because like, a lot of times the unconsciousness in others is a reflection of the unconsciousness in you as well. And so it's like, the NPC you see in another is part of your programming too, that person's mirroring, not consciously, because it's unconscious, because you're both unconscious. But then in that same moment of unconsciousness, becoming aware of that is the step into consciousness. Then it's like, oh, I was unconscious, but now I'm aware of what's going on, and I'm awake again, you know. And so it's like you can start to use other people that are in this kind of divine simulation, and through your own awareness of like who you are in Christ, you can start to move past that NPC kind of hive-minded like thing of, you know, whatever that is, you know, like it is, but it isn't, you know, because it's like it's an illusion, you know. It's ultimately just like a fantasy. It's like chasing a shadow because it's all within you. So it's like the more you become aware, the more you see that expansion in others. It's like the more that you see God in others instead of NPC type vibe or like an organic portal, whatever you want to call, like a game character. The more you see them as a reflection of like divine, like a child of God, you know, same the way God sees that person, the more they start to reflect that nature too. So it's like the whole thing of like duality or whatever has to do with, you know, making these judgments all the time. Is that person an NPC? Is that person real? Is that an ego in somebody else? You know, or you know, just arguing about who's right and who's wrong about moral behavior, even though it's like who fucking knows? You know, it's like you can go to any place in the world supposedly. You know, you go to these weird tribes that are just Ademic, is that right? Like they're still like in the jungle, you know, wearing like you know, shit from the jungle, and they're fucking hunting every day and killing shit and eating it, and it's like real fucking like it's where it's at, you know. And it's like, what are they thinking? It's like they could be all over they could be wanting to eat their fucking enemies. Who knows? You know, are they right? Are they wrong? Who fucking knows? You know, but like what we start to get into though is like we know how we'd like to be treated, you know, and that's how we start to navigate others. Is like do we want to be treated in that way? Do we want that to happen to us? Because there's only ultimately we're all connected. So any type of like drama towards another one comes back to you then too through a bridge of incidents, you know, and it just unfolds. It's like it's an unfolding, but at the same time it's like a doubling down, you know. It's like on some level, you know, because like a feedback loop that starts to just amplify and amplify, and like it either amplifies like your fears or it amplifies the oneness and the like connectivity. Then you start seeing like how natural law starts to play out in the physical space, you know. And you know, I hear a lot, you know, from like spiritual people, almost like I would almost describe it as like this weird humbleness that's not that's like a depravity. Like that's how I interpret it, at least. You know, I could be, you know, wrong and misinterpreting it, but like it just feels like, oh, you know, you almost are numb to shit, and you don't want things, you don't get things, or you don't whatever. It's like, just put me in the mix and I'll just whatever. Just, yeah, I get, you know, going with the flow and getting in states like that. But, you know, a big thing about like looking at life almost like a game is, for one, it starts to become funner and funner as you start to just demonstrate naturally your consciousness, and realize that everything in the physical world is a reflection of consciousness, and more importantly, your relationship with God in relationship to that, you know. So it's like money is a good example, because it's like we all have to deal with money, and we all have these stories about money and everything. But if your story is something that is different than God is your supply, there's a lot of resistance and dramas and fears associated. When you just trust that God provides, and that belief is within, and the more that you believe that God provides for you, that everything is abundant in your supply. Scarcity is an illusion. Well, you know, it's like you incrementally grow your faith in that. So it's like you start right here, right now. Everything that you have is a reflection of your state of consciousness. When you take responsibility and ownership for that, well, then you can start to steward and grow what you have, and you do that through consciousness, you know. And before you like kind of realize you're doing it in consciousness, a lot of times it'll take this bridge of incidents, this unfoldment of these different physical things going on. But what's going on in that process is you might be having to buy more things. You might have to take on more financial responsibilities. You might have like these things that just start being done to you. It's like, well, it's like I feel like my fears have come upon me. It's like I start moving from scarcity to abundance, and all these NPCs then, are then bringing all this. I owe this much money. I got to pay this over here. I got to do this over here. I got to do all these financial responsibilities. Just all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, just are being brought to me. Well, the problem in that situation is understanding, because and that creates this fucking bridge of incidents that you have to go through to get that understanding. But a lot of it has to do with realizing that to get money, you spend money. That's part of like a business. It's like you realize that you're in this flow where it's like you have money coming in, but more the general person doesn't see is a lot of it goes right back out. So it's like, oh, you get thousands of dollars coming in, but then you have like thousands of dollars worth of like employees and bills and and shit, and it's like it's this flow that you have to just start building up until you get the surplus for yourself. But but in that, then you're spending a lot of money, and then it's coming back to you. Though the more that you're trusting that God is your supply, and that you're in the flow of the supply, it's all about the narrative that you're telling yourself. But if the narrative is, oh, all these NPCs are bringing these fears to me, well, then you start to maybe wanting to attack others and everything else. But in a lot of ways, that they're just unconsciously playing a part versus consciously knowing that they're helping you. They're just being moved around and orchestrated by infinite intelligence to mirror these different things back to you as you choose to become more and more present and aware of that only God is real. Only love is real. So it's like you are in that hologram of God. Basically, there's in God's consciousness. You're in God's mind. It's like all of this is just being brought to you to make you more and more conscious and aware, and being able to demonstrate who you are. And so it's like in form, and so it's like as you hit these different like milestones in your consciousness and your relationship to God in that consciousness through faith, it's like, okay, I'm believing more and more so that God is my supply for this. Well, then you realize, oh, if that's if God's my supply over here and it's abundant, then over here, if God's my supply for health, then that should be abundant too. And then it starts to build, and as that relationship starts to become more of a reality within, as within so without, and so then you begin to demonstrate that through the physical by stewarding all of these things that are being brought to you that develop your consciousness, but also at different levels of complexity and whatnot. But it gets to a point where it becomes easier, because it's just not a big deal anymore. Where it's almost like playing the guitar, where it's like there's a time where it's difficult, where it's like a lot of efforting and everything else, but then after you work through a lot of that through just repetition, same thing with life, is just repetition, and it just keeps going until you level up. Then it becomes enjoyable, then it becomes fun, and then it becomes, oh, I'm able to hold an image on the inside and be able to execute that just right now, and it's like you get better and better at matching that inner vision to which you can demonstrate externally, but everything is is a demonstration externally of your relationship with God. And so that's interesting to then start to become more and more hopeful, because it's like, oh, as I steward what I have and take better care of it, develop it, evolve it, whatever fears are manifesting in my consciousness, maybe being mirrored through NPCs or organic portals or whatever, just realize that they're all part of God's consciousness. So it's like you show love to all of God's creation, and so not to sit in judgment, but being able to have a black and a white to paint the fucking artwork of your life, basically. It's like it's all connected. Not to say it's like, oh, it's great that there's violence and horror and fucking terrible predatory people, but that's everything's all through law, you know. So it's like in vibration. So it's like as you descend in these like different states of consciousness, you know, both fucking things exist. And I don't think they next, like if you have someone at a super low vibration and a high vibration, I don't know if they fucking just get repelled or what the fuck happens. But it's almost like, you know, you start seeing how everything's working out, that God's in control of the, you know, through these laws of consciousness, where it's like you're constantly reaping what you're sowing in your thought world. Your inner is being expressed externally, like a mirror all the time. That's just who you are. It's like you don't have to control it. You don't gotta whatever. You know, God's in control of it. You know, and only love is real, and perfect love casts out fear. So it's like basically the only thing that's happening is you're just releasing your fear, growing your faith in God, and this kind of simulation. You know, it's like, you know, it's like simulation. I'm so triggered as a Christian. You can't put my mind there like a matrix or whatever. But it's like all a simulation implies is that it's created, and then it's a controlled like a program or whatever. You know, and it's like, you know, with God all things are possible. So it's like really exploring what's possible through demonstration, but you know, demonstrating it through your faith, and trusting in God that, you know, God brings the manifestation. You know, it's just you know, that you can be, do, and have anything, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe you received it, and it's yours according to Jesus. And it's like, well, we put these promises to the test to see what's real. I encourage you to test it for yourself, but you know, it's only ever now. So you are doing that, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. But you are putting things to the test constantly in the present moment, consciously or unconsciously. But yeah, with that being said, I think I'm gonna bounce this. So I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, all the social networking things. I appreciate. It's so freaking cold in here. You know, it's like I feel like I'm about to start shivering. You know, it's like really resisting turning the furnace on. You know, just. Oh, it's middle of October. It's like no fucking way yet. You know, but yeah, I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, all the social networking things. I just appreciate your spiritual support and your physical support. You know, thank you for that. Until the next now, God bless.